Happy Thursday and welcome to today's episode of Tech Bites. I'm Rick Vanover, the Rickatron, and I am here to talk KPIs, key performance indicators. I'm in a new setup. I'm in our Seattle office here in Northwest Washington in the United States, but I want to know where you are coming in from. So we are live on several streams right now. Go ahead in the chat and let me know what U.S. state or country you are in, and we will light up the mapplication because I've got one producer in Texas and the other producer in the great state of Ohio, the Buckeye State, my normal home base, but today I'm over at the Veeam Seattle HQ for this episode. So welcome everyone. Now, I want to talk about the ABCs of KPIs for the SMBs. Yes, you see that right. I had some fun with the different three-letter acronyms, and I think it's important for small and medium businesses to kind of have some fluency in these, right? Because each of you is a practitioner or mid-manager in any type of technology disciplines. You're going to have to go and talk to management, business stakeholders a little bit. Here's a good set of language to get you started. So I want to introduce you, first of all, that we are in what I'm calling the SMB series. So the small and mid-sized business, we're on a journey for the year. We're probably going to have two more after this episode, but today it's the ABCs of KPIs for the SMBs. And in January or earlier in the year, February, got it day, month, not month, day. In February, Kirsten Stoner and I talked about 5 easy resiliency tips for the SMB. So you think about immutability, MFA, think about 3-2-1 rule. I forget what the other two were, but they were really good. You want to watch that episode. Today it's the ABCs of KPIs, and then my next episode will be in June, late June, with Lady Megatron. She's up. She's going to be my guest, a good friend of mine there at Veeam. Going to talk about the IT skills gap, so that's going to be a cool one as well. All right, so that's our kind of series that we're working on for the year for the SMB. And again, why have a KPI? If you are a practitioner, if you are a system admin, if you are a IT services manager at a small, mid-sized business, this quickly becomes the currency you'll need to do to talk to your stakeholders across the business. Now, one thing I want to add to that is if you're ever in a situation where you're like, well, I need to get funding for something, this set of language can help you get alignment to your organization to make it happen. Let me say it in another way. There's usually a very big gap between what the organization expects and then what's implemented. Okay, we have nothing but evidence in the form of data protection trends, research, and other types of market data here at Veeam that tell us that there's a gap, right? But the reality is the set of technologies out there today, everything from modern platforms to really cool backup products. I wonder who could be one of those. A lot of the different options out there really tell us we can do anything to any expectation. So all of that being said, if you're in a situation where you need funding or business support, this is a language that can help you. All right. When I'm thinking KPIs, and I'm going to go more than just backup in some of these, by the way, the number one is the RPO. Now, it's almost football season here in the U.S. We have some spring football going on. It's good football. You should watch it. But I'm not talking about the run-pass option. The RPO, the way I like it, that is the recovery point objective. So in terms of a definition, this is really important. Like if you want to have that conversation with the business, this is the one you start with. The recovery point objective, the definition I make, is really just the acceptable amount of data loss in a data protection or resiliency strategy. Now, when I think about this, this is really how much data the business can lose, because there's a point in time, think of like measures of around a clock, the simplest example is 24 hours. More complex examples are minutes, things like that. And you can do basically anything today, especially now with Veeam's continuous data protection. So that's down to 2 seconds. That's pretty cool. But there's a little bit of work in infrastructure to get there, okay? So what I'm going to do now is jump over into the lab. I'm going to add a couple demos here today. So let's do a quick switcheroo. And right away, you're going to tell them, hey, Rick, you're not looking at Veeam. That's right. I want to also give you some news. Just yesterday, we had some news here at Veeam. We have released a new app called this Veeam app for Splunk. So it's over in Splunk base. So if you're using Splunk, I literally just set this up this morning. This is really cool. And I started simulating some data, including some security threats. So if you're using Splunk, you want to check that out. Other pieces of news is that, was that last week? Nope, it was this week, the 23rd on Tuesday. We announced our acquisition that closed in March of Coveware, which is really cool stuff on incident response and additional insight to ransomware and cybersecurity threats. Good stuff. Also, the news chugs on here at Veeam today, the 25th. We launched that the IDC report for the semi-annual tracker. Veeam is #1 in market share. In fact, if you I think if we look at the link here, they got a beautiful picture, but I don't have it handy. But it's good to be #1 is all I want to say. And that's Coveware if you haven't checked that out. That's in the Veeam portfolio now. Good stuff. Okay, back to what I really wanted to show you. I want to start in Veeam Backup and Replication. So in Veeam Backup and Replication, this is one of my lab environments, first of all. I got a lot of different things going on. I've got Hyper-V systems being backed up. I've got Linux agents, Windows agents, VMware backups, Windows agents, all kinds of stuff. But I have several Linux agents in a centrally managed job here. So what I want to do in relationship to the recovery point objective is just show you what that looks like in Veeam. So if I look here, this is where it's at. Now, Veeam backup products, especially those in Veeam Data Platform, this is a very consistent experience across the platforms. Because keep in mind, the example I'm talking to you about is central management of Linux agents. So these are physical systems running the Linux operating system, and the Veeam backup for Linux is doing the backup, okay? So that being said, I have this great schedule engine that is consistent across all of the different Veeam Data Platform products. So if you've seen this before, but you've not done Linux, that's because this part of the code, the user interface is very similar. And this is where a recovery point objective is born. So if I'm looking at this schedule, I can see that this job for all of the systems in this protection group are going to run every day at 10 p.m. So that tells me that is a 24-hour RPO. Now, if we want to get academic about it, the jobs may not start exactly. It may be 24 hours and 1 minute off or something like that, or maybe 23:58, things like that. So there's a little bit of consideration. But if you go talk to your business and you'll say, look, 24 hours is good, but it's not good enough, then you can get into things like periodically. Let me look at this example. I just did one little change of the user interface and I went to periodically 1 hour. So this is 1 hour RPO. Again, it may be off a little bit, but it's generally going to be 1 hour. Now, what's attractive about this is that really slices the business into 24 hours of a day from a recovery point objective. That's a very different conversation if you had to kind of restore through the middle of the day, any type of enterprise app, manufacturing systems, things like that. Now, guess what? The party goes on. We could go into minutes, okay? Now, I think 1 minute is a little bit tight, so I'm going to go with 5. Now look at this. So I've got, I guess this would be 20 bad math. This would be 12 recovery points an hour. Okay, so a 5-minute RPO. Now the agents can probably do that, believe it or not. But then this is going to add a little bit more transactions to your system. It's going to add more increments on disk, and we got to think about how much we're retaining as well. But you can even get into, especially for agents as well as virtual machine backups, we can just do the backup continuously. Now, this is a semi-continuous data protection, but I want to give you a big caution here. Always doing a backup, and then once it's done, starting a backup again is going to be disruptive on your primary storage. So I really want to recommend that you have something that can handle that. But this is the birth of the recovery point objective. One of the things I like about Veeam, by the way, if I go back to this 24-hour RPO. I could even get into some granular options because if you know your business, again, talking to your business, you might say, I don't need that every day. I only need it Sunday through Thursday. I only need it Monday through Friday, or maybe not on Wednesdays. You name it, we can do it. So it's really important to know that you have the ability to make a very granular recovery point objective. It's right there. And that's consistent across all of the image-based backups in Veeam. So that, my friends, is the recovery point objective. If you're looking to have a conversation with a stakeholder of the business, how much data can they lose? And they say very little. You start working there, work on that recovery point objective, and then go back to them and say, don't demo what I just did because they might get lost. But go back to those stakeholders and say, look, I can commit on the infrastructure side to giving you, tell them 2 hours, but it's really 1 hour, that type of thing. Or tell them, every 12 hours, but it's really every 4. You can do those types of things because you also run the opportunity of impressing and surprising them if something comes up. Because chances are the business, the stakeholders, et cetera, they can provide you funding if you need to get better primary or secondary storage to support this type of configuration. Okay, so that's KPI number 1. All right, RPOs cannot be used without RTOs. So this is probably the second most important KPI when it comes to what you deploy. And in terms of a definition, the recovery time objective can go 2 different ways, by the way. The amount of time between recovery points and a data protection strategy, or what you tell the business you have implemented and what they expect. And I just noticed a typo on my slide, but you know how I am. Where live is live. I'm going to fix it right now if I could. But basically, when I look at these different definitions here, I did have a copy paste malfunction situation, but that's okay. You guys know how I roll. This is what the business, you tell the business you have implemented and what they've expected from when something goes wrong. And if I look at this, my thought here is this is how long it's going to take me to get back from a problem. Okay. So if I have lost a file, that's a really classic example. Files and whole system, by far, I'd say 90+% of recoveries are those 2 types. But what people expect is a recovery time objective irrelevant of the infrastructure. So this is a very important caution. I might expect this for a database. I might expect this for an enterprise multi-tiered application. So when you think about recovery time objective, if you say to yourself as a practicing IT pro, I can restore a file in a minute. Okay, that does not mean that if you have to restore a database, it will take a minute. Now, Veeam can do that quickly, but a minute is a pretty lofty expectation, especially if you don't know what you're looking for within database world. Whole system, instant VM recovery as well, really good. But you also have to remember to move that back to production. So if you've ever done that, always remember to migrate to production. But the recovery time objective, my advice to you is to think about worst case scenario. And that's really important. Multi-tiered app, multiple systems, multiple files, an entire file share. Now, the saving grace here, friends, is Veeam has instant recovery. Instant recovery is a technology that goes from image-based backups, physical and virtual. It also applies to file shares, enterprise apps, all of those different data types, and they're very, very quick. But if you're in a situation where you need to do several of them concurrently, you will just make sure you don't say everything's 1 minute, because if you have to do a bunch of those, it might take you a little bit longer. Okay, so just reality check there. And then secondly, individual people are expecting their apps, right? The infrastructure is what you and I as practitioners care about, but the apps are what they care about. Producers, just let me know that the map is ready. So let's take a look at that real quick. So like I said, I'm in the U.S. state of Washington. We've got someone in from Texas. Well, that's our producer. We've got Ohio, but we've got Georgia in the house. Let us know what state you're in. We'll light it up. Down in South America, I think I saw both Brazil and Argentina. I'll be down in Argentina this summer for the Veeam tour. Looking forward to that. And then over, did I see anything else? We are limited to the Americas today. Oh man, the internet must be doing us a favor. But anyways, let us know where you're at. I feel like when we go live on these streams, it's kind of funny. Sometimes the different platforms don't push it out to all the things. It's really interesting how this works. But it looks like we got Beth in from Brazil, and then Sebastian from Argentina. Welcome both of you, as well as Georgia, a couple others. All right, so the next our KPI is really about OpEx. Okay, and I gotta slightly go into commercial mode here for a second. So operational expenses, so OpEx, right? If you want to think about how much work you set up to do backups and recoveries and monitor it, and then also a little bit of CapEx of providing an infrastructure for backup and things like that. I just want to let everybody know that the Veeam Data Cloud is now in market for 3 key services. The first of those, let me get my little thingamapointer going. The first of those is for Microsoft 365 backup. So a lot of times people want to back up Microsoft 365, but they don't want to back up or they don't want to set up an infrastructure. And so my thought here is this is strictly an outcome. So Veeam Data Cloud is backup as a service for software as a service. So for both Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Azure, Veeam has an offering right now that can protect that for you, and you don't have to have any OpEx to set it up, monitor it. You don't have any CapEx to provide the infrastructure for it. And the very important thing I want to highlight, especially for Microsoft 365 backups, this offering, Veeam Data Cloud for Microsoft 365, has a very specialized and dedicated group of people that are sizing it. And that's really important because sizing stuff in the cloud is just harder. You have to do it more specifically than you would on premises. Okay, so there's this whole, I'm trying not to roll my eyes too much, but this whole cloud economic intelligence model, right? A lot of people don't have cloud economists on staff in the SMB. We have cloud economists that are looking at APIs, looking at the cost of the models, the cost of the storages. But sizing something for the cloud is a art and a science, and it's kind of rare in the skills. The one important thing I'll highlight about Veeam Data Cloud is this is all sized for you. Now it's sized on our scale as the offering to be efficient, but it takes that away from you as an IT practitioner. You don't have to do it for this. So keep that in mind. And you also just basically get the outcome of backup as a service. Also, last month we offered a third service for Veeam Data Cloud, the Vault. The Vault is this kind of ultra resilient offsite storage powered by Azure, immutable, and a really easy way for you to get a backup copy offsite. I talked to a lot of small businesses that are single sites. They only have one data center and they need to get that backup data offsite. We at Veeam have been talking about the 3-2-1 rule forever. This is a really good way to get that backup data offsite. So check out the Veeam Data Cloud Vault. What does backup as a service give you in terms of KPIs? It really gives you a better OpEx and a CapEx conversation. You don't have an OpEx cost of administering an infrastructure. There is an OpEx cost to consume Veeam Data Cloud, and you don't have the CapEx cost of a server and dedicated storage, whether it be in the cloud or on-prem. So super attractive in that regard. All right, here's a new one. This one's kind of tough. I'm getting to four letters in my acronym soup here. MTTR. Now, if you've ever been through an incident, you'll know that there's really a lot of things that go into it. Number one, what happened? And then number two, how long does it take us to get out of that? Here's a conversation language, a KPI that you can use called mean time to resolution. So mean time to resolution, I stole this definition, and I wouldn't say I'm stealing it, but I'm using it. It's from Atlassian. They make some really cool products for workflow management and stuff like that. But anyways, I found this on theirs. The rest of them I just made up. But basically, mean time to resolution is, quote, the average time it takes to fully resolve a failure. This includes not only the time spent detecting, right, diagnosing the problem and repairing the issue, but also the time spent ensuring the failure wouldn't happen again, right? Because the thought is you have this risk of after it happened, why would it not happen again? Now, sometimes it's pretty clear. the hard drive failed. There was a broken network situation. The provider for the site-to-site internet let us down or had an outage. That's pretty clear. Outage resumed. But if it was an application issue, like the database blew up, well, why did it blow up? Well, let's find out. That's part of this mean time to resolution. Why did we found out why it blew up? Okay, what are we doing to not make it happen again? We got to do that next weekend at a change control, things like that. So think about the broader picture. It's not just system out by the log. I look in logs and I see that a system went down at a certain time. Then a help desk ticket was raised, and then a backup admin recovered. That's part of the MTTR, but it's not getting to the root cause and then ensuring that it won't happen again. So this is something that I recommend that you as an IT professional just be familiar with, but also be able to track it in the sense of if you have an incident that gets attention from your management, some of your stakeholders, provide some of these, sometimes they call them postmortems, after incident reports, but use a language like MTTR for the ability to report back to them. And I got some new people coming in. Hey, Eddie, welcome from Ecuador. Good stuff, good stuff. So this is a good one. Mean time to resolution. All right, the next one I want to show you is uptime versus downtime. Now, this sounds really simple, right? But uptime report is really attractive. So I'm going to switch back over to the demo, and let's see if I can do that on a magical flow, and I did. Big thank you to our producer, Jeffrey. He's like, Rick just keeps changing the plan every day, but I do. So let's talk uptime versus downtime. So I want to go ahead and log into Veeam 1 because it'll save me logging in a second here. And I don't know about you, but it's really hard to talk into a password at the same time, but I think I did it right. I think I did. Okay. So let's go over to Veeam 1. And if you're not familiar with Veeam 1, it's part of the Veeam data platform. What I really like about Veeam 1 is there's these really powerful reports. So I'm going to launch the reporting right here. This will be for my VMware environment because it's a little bit bigger, but I'm going to repeat it on Hyper-V in just a second here. Well, let's go down to, let's see, right here. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so see if you can follow what I did. I hit reports, I hit vSphere, and then I went into host uptime. Okay, so these 3 clicks take me to an area where I can do reporting on the individual host uptime. And I really like this because this is a nice infrastructure report, but keep in mind you can also do it for individual VMs. I guess I'll zoom in one more time. If you have a collection of enterprise apps that people really care about, you could do it there too. The issue is I don't have them categorized like that here, and I have thousands of virtual machines, and that report may take a while. So I'm just going to do the host, but you get the gist of what I'm going to make here. Let's do host uptime. All right, so the host uptime report, I'm going to make it a pretty large range. I'm going to do a calendar year. Okay, so I'm going to go back to April of 23, and I'm just going to put April 1st. No joke. April 1st, 2023 till now. So I have a little bit over a year, and I'm going to be looking at scoping. Now, I mentioned that I don't have it scoped by enterprise apps, but if Kirsten was here, she would definitely give me some feedback that, Rick, you could absolutely do that with Business View. That's exactly what it's for. Now, I like this one too. If I wanted to, I could say just in business hours, how's my uptime, right? And then I just want to also zoom into kind of who's close to, I could also look just at the top half of who's above 80%. All right, so I've got a year, I've got my hosts, everything, all times of the day. So let's take a look. Now, I work in this environment every day, and I have a bunch of people on my team. We have, you can see it right here, we have, let's see, I guess it's 9, 10, it's a number, let's call it 10 different hosts, 2 different clusters. And I don't quite have 100% uptime. So if you're in the business of how many nines, well, I'm not quite there. And if you look at these measures here, the amount of downtime that I've had in that year. This is about 6 hours for most, and one of them had 10 hours downtime. So that's hours, minutes, seconds. Now, the seconds doesn't really seem to be tracked. I think it goes down to the collection interval that we do. But this is a really good view of my downtime for the hosts. Now, let me get into another example because, I had 2 or 3 nines. It's not that good. But let me put it in business hours, for example. I know that the organization that I use, when we do have maintenance issues, we'll get into the bit of we'll do all the changes after hours and things like that. Now, let me go back one more, and I'm going to do the individual virtual machine look at the uptime. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to go to reports, I'm going to go to virtual machines, and I'm going to do VM uptime. So this is, I remember I said I had thousands of VMs. Okay, so I'm not going to do a whole year. I am going to do everything, but it's just going to do it for virtual machines. So this is actually an additional view, not just of the hosts, but of the individual virtual machines, so that you can have a good sense of enterprise app uptime, and you could even categorize it as well. Now, the good news is I have several that have 100% uptime for that allocation here. That's great. And the ones that I'm seeing that are in there include the domain controller, which sounds like a really good one to have available 100%. But you have some really good views here. So again, I really like this. And if you want on this report, the subsequent pages have a lot more detail. So really, this first page is everybody's 100%, and I recognize a lot of these things. So this is my IP address management system. This is my jump box. Those both have 100% uptime. So you have a good set of visibility from this. And again, this is all in Veeam 1, part of the Veeam data platform. So hopefully uptime versus downtime also comes into not just your description, but also into your kind of reporting standpoint. So you'll have some actual numbers to go by what you're doing. All right, so like I said, this is our SMB series. And so the next one up in late June is going to be talking about the IT skills gap. And we have a couple of other things coming up next week. So on April 30th, on Tuesday, Jay Buff is going to talk about modernizing applications the easy way, which definitely has to be the Veeam way and the Industry Insights stream. And then on Thursday, friends, this is hilarious. We have the Veeam 100 show with Anthony Spiteri and Michael Melter, one of the legends. Honey, I shrunk the RTOs. It's almost like we have a plan. So RTO was that very second one I talked about. Anthony and Michael are going to talk about how you can have reduced RTOs with the CDP engine. Actually, it was RPO, sorry, recovery point objectives. I know they're talking about CDP, continuous data protection, but nonetheless, it's a really good close look, I'm pretty sure, at the continuous data protection engine by Veeam. So on behalf of the social media team, Felicia in Texas, and then Jeffrey in Ohio, I want to thank the producers for helping me join everything. And big welcome to those who also joined from Ecuador and India. Sorry, ran out of time with the application, but we will see you next time on Tech Bites or the Veeam 100 show. Have a great weekend, everyone.